The story begins on October 16, 1932. We see a young black man named Sammy, badly injured and covered in blood, entering a church. The priest of that church turns out to be his own father, who is shocked to see him in such a condition. His father urges him, saying, "Come back to the path of God, leave behind music and all of that." But Sammy is completely stunned. He doesn't say a single word. His face is marked with deep, terrifying scratches. So what happened to Sammy? Why is he so silent? To understand that, we have to go back to earlier events. We are introduced to two brothers, Smoke and Stack. They had both fought in World War I and returned to their hometown with a significant amount of money. Sammy and Stack are black men, and at that time in America, black people faced severe racism and oppression. They were treated as inferior and constantly discriminated against. Because of this, the two brothers come up with a plan to build a nightclub specifically for black people, using the money they earned. They purchase a factory and some land from a white man named Hogwood in that area, which will serve as the location for their nightclub. From there, the brothers begin making all the necessary preparations to build a place where black people can gather freely and feel welcomed. The scene then shifts. We see Smoke returning home after about 6 months to his wife, Annie. Smoke and Annie had a daughter who passed away, and the grief of losing her caused Smoke to disappear for half a year, unable to cope with the pain. Now he finally comes back home, still carrying that emotional burden. The story shifts again. We see a man whose skin appears to be burned, with smoke rising from his body. He's desperately running toward a house, begging for help. When he reaches the house, he pleads with the homeowners, saying, "Please give me a place to hide or they'll kill me." Feeling sympathy for him, the husband and wife allow him to hide inside. As evening approaches, a group of hunters arrives at the house. They warn the woman, saying, "If you're hiding a stranger in your home, hand him over to us. That man is extremely dangerous." But the woman stands her ground, pointing a gun at them and forcing them to leave. By then, night has fallen, and the hunters decide not to push further and leave the area. However, when the woman goes back inside, she is horrified. She finds her husband dead on the floor. Nearby, the man they had sheltered is now sitting on a chair, but he is transformed into something monstrous. That man's name is Remick. He is a vampire. Earlier, when he was running in daylight, the sunlight was burning his body. That's why his skin was smoking. Remick then turns both of the homeowners into vampires as well. The scene shifts once more to the nightclub. In a very short time, the brothers manage to get it up and running, thanks to their financial resources. This club is built as a safe space for black people, a place where only they are allowed, free from discrimination. Several performers are brought in to entertain the guests. Among those performers, we see the same young man from the beginning, Sammy. Sammy is also brought in, mainly because he has an incredibly beautiful singing voice. Everyone at the club is having a great time, enjoying themselves, and Sammy is performing wonderfully. At that moment, outside the club, we see the vampire Remick, along with the same couple. They want to join the party and dance with everyone inside, but the doorman stops them, saying that the club is only for black people. They are not allowed in. Just then, Smoke arrives and firmly drives them away. The three of them don't go far. Instead, they sit off to the side nearby. Meanwhile, we are introduced to a girl named Mary, who is leaving the nightclub to head home. On her way, she notices those same three individuals who had tried to enter earlier. Mary approaches them and starts talking. However, after a short while, she realizes something is wrong. They are not human. They are terrifying vampires. As Mary tries to run away, Remick attacks her from behind and turns her into a vampire as well. Shortly afterward, Mary returns to the nightclub and asks for permission to enter. Now the question arises, Mary is white, so why is she being allowed inside a club meant for black people? The reason is that Mary is Stack's girlfriend. Mary takes Stack into a private room, wanting to be intimate with him. But moments later, a horrifying scream echoes through the club. Smoke and his friends rush to the room and see a shocking sight. Mary has bitten Stack on the neck and her appearance has transformed into something monstrous and vampiric. Without hesitation, Smoke pulls out his two revolvers and fires 8 to 10 shots into Mary's chest, but she doesn't die. Instead, she runs away. Seeing his brother in such a condition, Smoke is terrified. At that point, his wife Annie explains that Mary has become a vampire, and since she bit Stack, he will soon turn into one as well. An alarm is immediately raised in the nightclub, instructing everyone to leave and return home safely. The club is shut down for the night, and only Smoke and a few of his close companions remain inside. The scene shifts again. The doorman steps away for a moment to relieve himself, and that's when Remick attacks him and turns him into a vampire. Shortly after, the guard returns and asks to be let back inside. His behavior raises suspicion among the group. The guard then says, "Fine, you don't have to let me in, just give me my payment." As Smoke reaches his hand outside to pay him, the guard suddenly tries to bite him. Smoke reacts instantly and shoots him, knocking him back. But even then, the guard doesn't die. Now everyone inside is truly frightened. They quickly shut the doors, unsure of what to do next. Meanwhile, Smoke's brother Stack has already transformed into a vampire and begins trying to break down the door to attack those inside. At that moment, Annie throws hot, garlic-infused water on him. His skin starts burning, and he runs away in agony. Realizing the danger, they come together to form a plan to survive. They know that vampires are vulnerable to garlic, silver, and holy water, so they break pieces of wood into stakes and soak them in holy water, preparing to defend themselves. The scene changes once more. All the people who had left the bar earlier have now been turned into vampires by Remick. As they make their way back, they gather outside the nightclub and begin causing chaos. They shout that the performer named Sammy has an incredible voice and demand that he be handed over to them so they can take him and continue their party. Vampires cannot enter a home or property without permission, so they remain outside and try to lure Sammy out. But Smoke refuses to give him up. At that point, Remick, the leader of the vampires, threatens one of the women inside, saying, "Your daughter is home alone right now. We can go there and turn her into a vampire too." Hearing this, the woman becomes furious and shouts, "How dare you! You think you can turn my daughter into a vampire?" In her anger, she makes a huge mistake. She tells them to come inside. By doing that, she unknowingly gives the vampires permission to enter. The moment they are allowed in, all the vampires rush inside, and a brutal fight breaks out. During the chaos, the vampires begin turning people one by one. Meanwhile, Smoke is trying to escape through a hidden passage with Sammy. Suddenly, Smoke's brother, Stack, now fully turned into a vampire, appears and attacks him. At one point, Smoke manages to overpower Stack, but cannot bring himself to kill his own brother. Instead, he lets him go and tells him to leave. At the same time, Sammy is trying to escape through the same hidden path, holding his guitar. That's when Remick, the leader of the vampires, shows up. He attempts to turn Sammy into a vampire as well. During the struggle, Sammy swings his guitar and strikes Remick hard on the head. Inside the guitar, there is a piece of silver, which gets lodged into Remick's head. Since vampires are vulnerable to silver, Remick begins to weaken. Because Remick is controlling all the other vampires, his weakening causes them to grow weaker as well. Just then, Smoke arrives and drives a sharpened wooden stake soaked in holy water into Remick's chest, killing him. As morning begins to break and the sun rises, the vampires can no longer survive in the sunlight. One by one, they start burning and are completely destroyed. In the end, only 2 people survive, Smoke and Sammy. The scene then returns to what we saw at the very beginning of the movie. Sammy, covered in blood, arriving at the church where his father is preaching from the Bible. The story shifts again. We see Smoke sitting alone, devastated after losing his family and everything he cared about. From a distance, he notices Hogwood, the same cruel white man who oppressed black people, arriving with others to take over the property again. Filled with all the anger and hatred he has carried inside, Smoke opens fire and kills them all. But he doesn't survive either, as he has already been fatally wounded by a gunshot to his chest. The scene changes once more. Sammy chooses not to follow his father's advice. Instead, he leaves his village with his guitar, determined to become a great musician, and heads to the city. Many years later, the story jumps to October 16th, 1992. Sammy is now an old man and a famous singer performing at a show. There, he suddenly sees Stack and his girlfriend Mary, but shockingly, they still look young, even after 60 years, while Sammy has grown old. Stack approaches him and says, "I promised my brother I would never harm you. That's why I stayed away all these years. But now you're old and you don't have much time left. If you want, I can turn you into a vampire so you can live forever." But Sammy refuses. He says, "I've already gotten more out of life than I ever wanted. I don't need anything else. Now I'm just waiting for my time to come." After that, Stack and Mary leave, and the story of the movie comes to an end.
Hello, friends. We've already explained the movie's story. Now, in the second phase, we're going to break down the full movie. We'll go into detail about the interesting elements, key points, and standout scenes. The name of the movie is Sinner. Later, in the final third section, where we talk about the movie overall, we'll discuss it in even more depth. But for now, we're going to break down the story from A to Z. If we pay close attention, at the beginning of the movie, we see a man on the screen who is the main protagonist, the central character of the story. His name is Smaug. Alongside him, we also see another important character named Stack, who is Smaug's brother. At the start of the movie, we see a young black man arriving in a jeep and stopping in front of a church. He looks badly injured. His body is covered in blood, and his clothes are torn and worn out. It seems like he either came from a violent fight or was brutally beaten. Then we see him enter the church. Everyone inside is shocked to see him in such a condition. Bloody, exhausted, and covered with scratch marks all over his body. People are staring at him in complete disbelief, trying to understand what happened. The most interesting part here is that this boy has come to meet his father, who is the priest of the church. The boy doesn't say a single word. He stands there in silence, his eyes filled with tears. It feels like he has just escaped from something terrifying. When his father sees him, he immediately embraces him and asks, "What happened to you? Why are you like this?" He also tells him to leave behind music and return to the path of God. It's important to note that they are Christians. Let's clarify one thing. The injured boy we just saw is named Sammy. Sammy loves playing the guitar and singing. In fact, one of the most highlighted and interesting aspects of this entire movie is Sammy's incredible singing voice. His father keeps urging him to give up music, calling it the devil's world, and instead surrender himself to God to find peace. But Sammy says nothing. He just stands there silently. If we look closely at his face, we notice deep scratch marks on his cheek. 4 large scratches. Where did these come from? What happened to Sammy that led him to this condition? To understand that, we have to go back one day earlier. So what happened just one day ago that changed everything so drastically? Let's move forward. As we go back in time, we see Sammy working in a cotton field, harvesting cotton along with others. It's worth mentioning that although Sammy is an incredibly talented singer, he is a black man living in America in 1932, specifically October 16, 1932. During that time in America, there was a strong racial divide. White people held most of the power and controlled society, while black people were treated with discrimination and considered inferior. Continuing further, we see everyone working together in the cotton fields, including Sammy. He doesn't live alone. He lives there with his family. However, his heart isn't in this work. He loves music and dreams of becoming a great artist someday. You can tell from his expressions and demeanor that working in the fields is not something he enjoys. He's waiting for an opportunity, a way out, a path that can lead him to his dream. As we move ahead in the story, we are introduced again to the two brothers I mentioned earlier. As I said in the beginning, the main character's name is Smoke, and Smoke's brother is Stack. You could say these two are essentially the main characters of the movie. Let me give you a bit of background about them. Both brothers are former soldiers from World War I. When the war broke out, they went off to fight, and after returning, they came back with a significant amount of money. When they returned to their hometown, they carried years of built-up anger inside them. As black men, they had constantly faced dhulm and oppression from white people, and now they were ready to stand against it. The war had changed them. They had become tougher, more aggressive, and fearless. They now had the courage to fight back against injustice. So the two brothers make a decision. This is the older brother, and this is the younger one. Together, they decide to build a nightclub. At that time, black people didn't have many opportunities or places to go. They were often denied entry and treated unfairly. So the brothers thought, these people work hard their entire lives. They deserve a place to relax and enjoy themselves. Using the money they brought back from the war, they planned to build this nightclub. At that time, there is also a wealthy white man in the area who is extremely greedy and cruel. He runs an organization that is built around oppressing black people. His name is Hogwood. We see that he owns a factory, and the two brothers buy that factory from him for a large amount of money so they can turn it into their nightclub. In an earlier scene, we see Sammy again, the same boy. He is standing absent-mindedly at the gate of his house. His father is there too, once again warning him to give up music and follow the path of God. At that moment, the two brothers arrive and take Sammy with them in their car. The reason they take Sammy is because of his incredible singing voice. They want him to perform at their nightclub. They take Sammy to a grocery store filled with supplies. There, they ask a young girl to watch over their car, which is loaded with goods. They tell her, if you see anyone trying to steal something, blow the whistle immediately, so we'll be alerted. They give her some money, and from her smile, it's clear she is very happy. Then Smoke enters the store. Inside, he warmly hugs the shop owner. The shop owner is not white, he is Chinese, and Smoke has a good relationship with him. Smoke talks to him about everything, about how they need to do something for black people. He tells his friend that he went to World War I, returned successfully, and brought back money. He explains that he wants to build a nightclub where hard-working black people can finally enjoy themselves at night. From this store, Smoke orders most of the supplies needed for the bar. We also see the shop owner's wife, who will play an important role later in the movie. After ordering everything, they leave the store. But something important happens here. As Smoke is coming out, the little girl suddenly blows the whistle, signaling danger. Smoke immediately rushes over and, without thinking twice, starts shooting at the thief. When he shoots the thief in the leg and gets closer, he realizes something shocking. The thief is not a stranger. It is actually one of his old friends. When Smoke realizes that the thief is actually his own friend, he feels a deep sense of regret. Instead of harming him further, he gives his friend some money so he can get proper medical treatment. After that, the two brothers set off again, this time searching for a good singer. Because to run a nightclub, they already have everything else: wine, food, and all the necessary supplies. But the most important thing they still need is a talented music performer. Without good singers, a nightclub is basically useless. So the two brothers keep driving until they reach a train station, because they had heard that there was a great singer there. When they arrive, they meet the man. The large-built black man we see there is the singer. He has an amazing voice, but there's one major problem. He's a heavy alcoholic. Once he starts drinking, he completely loses control. The brothers approach him and say, "Come with us. We are opening our nightclub tonight, and we want you to perform there. You'll be paid." But the man refuses at first. He says he already sings for another place at night, so he can't join them. Then Smoke changes his approach. He says, "Come with us, and we'll give you the finest imported alcohol. You can drink as much as you want, no limits." Hearing this, the man immediately agrees. The promise of unlimited alcohol convinces him. In this way, the brothers keep gathering everything they need to run the nightclub. They also go around inviting people saying, "Come to our nightclub tonight. It's a place only for black people. White people are not allowed." This is how they spread the word and invite everyone. At one point, we see a beautiful black woman. If you look closely at her smile, her facial features, and her presence, she is truly attractive. Sammy notices her and starts to like her. As mentioned earlier, Sammy is also a talented artist. There's a subtle connection between them, a quiet emotional exchange. Then the scene shifts, and we see a white woman named Mary. She has a past romantic relationship with Stack. When she sees him, she becomes emotional and says, "You're so cruel. You gave me false hope and then disappeared. I've been waiting for you all this time. I'm still waiting. My mother cared about you so much. She died yesterday, and you didn't even come to see her one last time." She expresses her pain and tells him how much she still loves him. But Stack responds coldly. He says, "Listen, I'm not a good man. I'm dangerous. We fought in a war. Our lives are violent and unpredictable. I don't want you to get involved with me and ruin your life." They have a long, emotional conversation, but despite everything she says, Stack doesn't show much sympathy. Instead, he simply tells her, "We're opening our nightclub tonight. If you want, you can come." After that, she leaves. Later, the brothers drive to a place where white men on horseback, carrying guns, are forcing black workers to labor like animals in cotton fields. These crops were very valuable at the time and were exported for profit. Black workers were forced to do this labor and were treated inhumanely. The brothers step out of the car, and Smoke gives a speech. He says, "A nightclub has been opened for you. After finishing your work, come there at night." He gives them the location and encourages them, saying, "We will not remain oppressed forever. We will slowly learn to claim our rights and stand up for ourselves." His words inspire the workers. They raise their hands in support, feeling hope for the first time. Then the scene changes again, and we see that the brothers have arrived at another location. They arrive and start talking to a large, heavy-set black man. He looks powerful, confident, and physically strong. Smoke, the main character, immediately thinks this man would be perfect as a doorman or security guard. Since not everyone will be allowed inside the nightclub, and it's meant only for black people, they need a strong guard to make sure no white people enter. So they hire him as a guard in exchange for a small amount of money. At this point, most of the preparations are complete. Everything is finally coming together. Then we see Smoke return home. This part is especially emotional and important. The truth is, Smoke hasn't been home for about 6 months. He had completely disappeared during that time. There's a reason behind it. He didn't even contact his wife or check on her. When he arrives, the first thing he does is step out of the car and walk over to a grave. He places flowers on it, and it's clear that he's deeply affected. This is when we learn that Smoke had a daughter who died 6 months ago. He loved his daughter deeply. He also loved his wife very much. But after losing his daughter, he was so emotionally devastated that he left his wife and disappeared. Now, after all this time, he stands in front of his daughter's grave, placing flowers in silence. Hearing the sound of the car, his wife comes out of the house. After nearly 6 months, they finally see each other again. Smoke lets go of all his resentment and forgives her. There's another important detail. Smoke's wife's name is Annie. Annie practices black magic. She believes that through her rituals, she can bring peace and protection to the family. But Smoke has always questioned this belief. He thinks that if her powers were real, then why couldn't she save their daughter? This was the biggest question he had for her. Annie never had an answer, and that's one of the main reasons he left home. Moving forward, the two of them go inside the house. After a long time apart, they reconnect and express their love for each other. Smoke gives her some money and says, "I've started a new nightclub for black people. You should definitely come tonight. I have a lot of work to do, so I need to go now." Even then, Annie doesn't want him to leave. After everything she's been through, the loss of her daughter and her husband being gone for 6 months, she is emotionally broken. Before saying goodbye, she holds him tightly, embracing him with affection and pain. Then she gently says, "All right, go and finish your preparations. I'll come tonight on time." The scene shifts. We see a vast, empty field where a man is running like he's lost his mind. If you look closely, you'll notice something strange. Smoke is rising from his body. His skin is literally burning, and smoke is coming off of it. But why is this happening? There's a major explanation behind it. The truth is, this man is actually a vampire, someone who cannot survive in sunlight. When exposed to the sun, his skin starts to catch fire. That's exactly why, if you observe carefully, smoke is coming from his body. The parts of his body that are uncovered, like his face, neck, and throat, have already started burning. This movie is essentially about vampires. Although at first glance, it appears to be just a horror film. But then the question is, how does a horror movie become so trending? If we check sources like Wikipedia and look up Hollywood movie lists for 2025, yes, this is a 2025 release, we can see that Sinners holds a strong position. According to available data, the movie ranks at number 8 in the top 10 box office collections. It has already earned around $280 million, which is a massive success. One of the key reasons behind this ranking is the film's unique structure and presentation. The movie heavily highlights music, songs that are truly captivating. These songs aren't just appealing to humans, but within the story, they seem to attract supernatural entities like ghosts, spirits, and demons as well. Anyway, as we move forward, we see the man finally reaching a house, desperately seeking shelter. His face clearly shows fear and the terror of death. As the man reaches the house, two armed people come out. They are a married couple, the husband and the wife, the owners of the house. Since they live in a remote, isolated area, they always keep guns nearby for protection. If you look closely, you'll notice something important. There are no other houses anywhere around. It's just an empty field, a single parked car off to the side, and dense jungle surrounding the area. Because of this isolation, the couple always keeps weapons for their own safety. Both of them step out and point their guns at the man. Terrified, the man pleads, "I'm in serious danger. They're going to kill me. They've already killed my wife, my children, my entire family. Please, just give me shelter." Hearing this, the couple begins to believe him. He looks severely burned, covered in blood, and smoke is still rising from his body. They assume someone must have tried to burn him alive. Feeling sympathy for his condition, they decide to help him. But this turns out to be the biggest mistake of their lives, because this man is actually a vampire. Trusting him, they let him inside. The vampire then starts crying hysterically. His name is Remick. This is what he's called in the movie. He begs desperately, saying, "Please save me. Don't send me back out there. They'll kill me." He continues acting convincingly, playing the role of a helpless victim. Soon after, we are introduced to a group of vampires. In this film, vampires are shown wearing white clothing, and interestingly, they can appear in light under certain conditions. Meanwhile, the couple exchanges glances and quietly discusses what to do. At first, the husband is hesitant, but the wife looks at him and insists, "We should help him." Moved by his miserable condition, they finally decide to give him shelter. The scene changes again. Just before sunset, when the sun is about to go down, a group of hunters, essentially cowboys, arrives at the location. Some of them are in a vehicle, while two others ride in on horseback. Their leader walks up to the house and knocks on the door, calling out, "Is anyone inside?" The woman comes out holding a gun. As mentioned earlier, she does this because they live in a completely isolated area with no nearby civilization. So carrying weapons is necessary for their safety. At this point, it's important to remember that the man they just sheltered, Remick, is actually a vampire. though the couple has no idea. By now, Remick has already manipulated them, making them believe that these hunters are the ones trying to kill him, and that they've already murdered his family. After hearing all of this, the woman doesn't hesitate. She steps forward with her gun aimed at the newcomers. The hunters are visibly confused. They're thinking, "What just happened? We didn't do anything. We just got here. And she's already pointing a gun at us?" She points the gun at them like that. Anyway, the man then starts explaining, "Listen, we're actually searching for someone extremely dangerous. He's cursed by God. He's not human. He's a creature, a vampire. If he's hiding in your house, you need to hand him over to us while it's still daylight. Otherwise, you'll be in serious danger." Hearing this, the woman raises her gun even more firmly and, in a harsh voice, says, "If you don't leave right now, I will shoot." At the same time, the sun is already about to set. And once the sun goes down, human strength fades. This is when vampire power begins. Vampires become so strong at night that humans are nothing compared to them. From a distance, the vampire hunters notice the sun setting. They know that once darkness falls, vampires will dominate. One of the men says, "Leader, we need to go. Don't waste any more time. The sun is almost down. We can't stay here any longer. If we do, our lives will be at risk. Once it's dark, we won't stand a chance against them." Everyone realizes the situation. The leader decides to leave. They mount their horses, start their vehicle, and quickly leave the area. The woman stands there, confused. A sense of fear starts to grow inside her. She begins to wonder, were those men telling the truth? Do vampires really exist? Could that man actually be a vampire? She's caught in a deep inner conflict. If you observe her expression closely, you can see she's shaken. She watches them ride away on horseback, and it feels like she's starting to realize she may have made a terrible mistake. Overwhelmed, she walks back into the house in a state of quiet distress. But the moment she opens the door, what she sees shocks her to the core. Her expression instantly changes. Her eyes widen in terror. An unknown fear takes hold of her. Inside, she sees her husband lying on the floor. It's dark, so it's hard to see clearly. But he's covered in blood. Not just lying there, he's dead. There's no life left in his body. And sitting calmly on a chair is the very man they gave shelter to, Remick. But now, Remick looks completely different. His expression is no longer human, it's monstrous. His sharp fangs are visible, his mouth is covered in blood, and his eyes carry a terrifying, predatory gaze. His body may still look human, but his face has transformed into something far more sinister. If you look closely, it's clear there's a deep hunger in his eyes, a hunger for blood. His entire face is stained with it. At this point, everything becomes clear. Remick, the man they trusted and sheltered, is truly a vampire, and he has killed the woman's husband. Then, in a calm voice, he tells her, "Don't be afraid. Your husband will be fine in a little while." Now, when he says, "He'll be fine in a little while," there's a deeper meaning behind that. Because when vampires feed on a human's blood, that person eventually turns into a vampire as well. That's why he says, "Don't worry, your husband will be fine soon." If we look closely, we can see the woman's husband lying there, his eyes starting to glow. There's a bloody bite mark on his neck. This is where the vampire Remick bit him. That means he has already been turned into a vampire. If you observe his teeth, they've become sharp and pointed. His eyes look completely different now, red and lifeless. Seeing all of this, The woman is completely shocked. She starts screaming loudly, but her screams are useless. This place is completely isolated. There are no people around, not even animals that could come to her rescue. She made a huge mistake by sending the hunters away. If she had told them the truth and let them in, she might have survived, because before the hunters even arrived, Remick had already bitten her husband and drained his blood. Now her husband has turned into a terrifying creature as well. This is one of the biggest twists. Vampires cannot come out in daylight. And there are even more terrifying twists coming Augie in the story, which we'll discuss later. At this point, the vampire himself explains, "I can't go out in daylight. When I stepped into the sunlight, my body started smoking, and my skin began to burn. The hunters were telling you the truth." So, this couple has made the biggest mistake of their lives by letting a vampire into their home. Now, we as viewers are left feeling frustrated. What more can even be said about this situation? Remick clearly has a much bigger and more dangerous plan. Even from his appearance, you can sense something sinister. There's a terrifying smile on his face. His expressions, his eyes, and that eerie grin are enough to scare anyone. Another thing to notice is that vampires can change their appearance very quickly. Right now, he looks blood-covered and monstrous, but at any moment, he can return to a clean, normal-looking human form. Anyway, as the story moves forward, the scene changes once again. We now see the nightclub created by the two brothers, Smoke and Stack. They had bought an old factory from Hawkwood and turned it into a nightclub. And now, that nightclub is finally open, bright lights glowing all around. At that time, when they first bought this place, there wasn't even electricity here. That's the most important thing to understand. When they entered, the entire place was completely dark. Later, they pulled power from a nearby source and set everything up, bringing electricity into the building. Now we can see several cars outside, which means many people have already arrived. As we move inside the nightclub, the scene is lively and vibrant. Right at the beginning, we see a singer with a big smile on his face. The place is filled with people, and the decoration is absolutely stunning. Exactly how a place like this should look. Inside, there are all kinds of people. Some are enjoying themselves, some are chatting, and many are drinking. Overall, the atmosphere is beautiful and full of energy. Smoke, who is the current owner of this factory and the one managing everything here, is offering drinks to everyone. Their goal was to create a space where black people could escape the brutal oppression and cruelty they faced from white people. This place represents freedom and joy. Everyone is drinking, dancing, and singing. It feels like, for many of them, this is the first time they've experienced such happiness in their lives. If we go back a little, we see Sammy and the girl he met at the station. She is also a very talented singer, and naturally, a connection begins to form between them. Even though she has dark skin, she is truly a black beauty. Her facial features are incredibly attractive. As they talk, they begin to like each other. It's that simple kind of connection between a boy and a girl. They start falling for each other and share a moment of budding romance. On the other side, we see Mary. Earlier in the story, we learned that Mary is Stack's girlfriend. Stack is Smoke's younger brother. Both brothers fought in World War I, earned a significant amount of money, and returned to their hometown. After coming back, they realized they wanted to do something meaningful for their community, especially for black people. Now we see a tense moment between Mary and Stack. They had a deep relationship in the past. However, Stack has become somewhat of a mafia-type figure. He's fearless, hardened by war, and has made many enemies in the area. There are people constantly looking for a chance to kill him and his brother Smoke. Because of this, Stack decided to leave Mary, not because he didn't love her, but because he didn't want to ruin her life. He believed that if she stayed with him, she might end up alone one day if something happened to him. So, for her sake, he walked away. As he explains all this to Mary, she refuses to accept it. She has waited for him for so long, endured loneliness, and now she's emotionally exhausted. This leads to a heated argument between them, filled with tension and emotional conflict. Then, as we move forward again, we return to the party scene. Sammy picks up a guitar after finishing his conversation with the girl. He is incredibly talented at playing it. Although he loves music deeply, his father does not approve of his passion at all. Still, Sammy begins to play and sing. His voice is so beautiful that it can instantly captivate anyone who hears it. His performance takes the entire party to another level. People start cheering loudly, fully immersed in the moment, enjoying every second of the music and the celebration. So, it's not just simple praise. Sammy's singing truly transforms the atmosphere and becomes one of the most powerful moments in the scene. There is something almost magical in Sammy's voice. It's not just people who are drawn to it. It's as if even supernatural beings like spirits, ghosts, demons, Dracula, vampires, every kind of entity is attracted to the sound of his singing. As we move further into the movie, we see that Sammy isn't performing alone. Smoke and Stack have already hired several performers, and together they are putting on a full musical show. Among them, there's another artist with a unique DJ-like style. He's wearing glasses, has a twisted accessory around his neck, and has headphones on his ears. He's creating an amazing musical vibe. Altogether, it feels like for the first time in their lives. These black people are truly enjoying themselves freely and wholeheartedly, thanks to Smoke and Stack. Many people are also wearing masks, dressing in different styles, dancing, and fully immersing themselves in the celebration. The date is October 16th, 1932, and this night is going to be remembered. It feels special, but also something terrifying is about to happen very soon. That's why this night is both significant and ominous. Outside the nightclub, we see a symbol representing music, because music brings peace and comfort. There's fire burning nearby, and people are deeply focused on enjoying the songs. These artistic elements are displayed outside the club as part of its identity. But from a distance, someone else is watching all of this. Can you guess who they are? These are the vampires led by Remick, the same Remick who went to a couple's house, drank their blood, and turned them into vampires. In fact, anyone whose blood Remick drinks becomes a vampire. And more importantly, he can control all of them. This is a major twist. Many viewers might watch the movie without realizing that these vampires are actually under his control. They've become his servants, almost like a network of mind-controlled beings. From a distance, they stare at the nightclub with a dark and sinister gaze. Then they begin moving toward it, as if they want to enter, dance, and join the celebration. Eventually, they reach the gate and try to get inside. Now, here's an important rule. Vampires cannot enter someone's property unless the owner gives them permission. So even though they've arrived, they can't get in. A guard is standing at the entrance, blocking them. Remick tells the guard that they want to go inside and enjoy the music and dancing, because they love it. The guard, a black man wearing a hat, refuses them entry. Back in those days, wearing hats, especially cowboy-style hats, was very common in America, particularly during the late 1800s and early 1900s. It was part of a widely recognized cultural style. The guard firmly tells them that this place is only for black people, and they are not allowed inside. No white people are allowed to enter here. Now, you might be wondering, earlier we saw a girl named Mary, and she is white. So how did she get into the club? Well, there's a backstory to that. Mary is actually Stack's girlfriend. Even though her mother was white, she never hated black people. In fact, Mary's mother raised Stack and his brother Smoke because both of them were orphans. She took care of them and brought them up like her own children. That's why Mary is accepted here. Now, going back to the gate, the black guard firmly says, "No, no, you cannot come inside." But the three of them start insisting. They argue, saying, "We love music and dancing. We're even willing to pay to get in. Just let us enter. We really enjoy this." The most important thing here is Sammy's voice. As mentioned before, it's not just humans who are drawn to his singing. Supernatural beings are also captivated by it. They are so mesmerized that they can't stay outside anymore. They desperately want to get inside and join the music and dancing. But their intentions are not pure. They're not just here to enjoy the music. Their real goal is to enter the club, drink the blood of everyone inside, and turn them into vampires. Meanwhile, a heated argument is taking place. The black guard is physically strong. He could easily take down all three of them if needed. He keeps saying, "No, we will not allow white people inside. Your people have oppressed us for so long. You've treated us as lower-class citizens." One of them responds, "But we didn't do that personally. Just because we're white, does that make us guilty?" So the argument intensifies. They insist they will get in, and the guard refuses to let them. At that moment, Smoke arrives, the owner of the nightclub. He steps in to handle the situation. He asks them, "Who are you? Where did you come from? Why do you want to go inside?" Remick, the vampire, along with the couple beside him, replies, "We love music and having fun. We just want to join in and dance with everyone." But Smoke has a deep resentment toward white people because of the long history of oppression against black people in America. So he firmly refuses and says it's not possible. He drives them away from the entrance. However, they don't go very far. Instead, they stay nearby, waiting like predators. The truth is, they didn't come just for music. Yes, they were drawn by Sammy's voice, but their main objective is to feed on humans and turn them into vampires. Now, back inside the club, we see Smoke with his wife, and Sammy is nearby talking with them. The atmosphere continues, but in the next scene, we see Mary again. If you notice her expression, she doesn't look happy at all. She had already argued with Stack earlier, and that argument is still affecting her mood. Because of that, she doesn't want to stay at the party anymore. As we move forward, Mary gets into another emotional outburst. She starts telling everyone that Stack has wronged her deeply. She says she waited for him for so long, but he never truly cared about her. She feels unloved and betrayed. Nearby, Smoke and his wife are standing and listening. They realize there's tension within their family and try to handle the situation internally. Eventually, Mary becomes so upset that she decides to leave the nightclub altogether. She walks out angrily and heads back home because she no longer wants to stay there. Because the nightclub owners, Smoke and Stack, had already had a conflict with her, Mary started to believe something troubling, that maybe black people were actually bad, just like many white people unfairly assume and treat them with prejudice. Anyway, as Mary walks a little further, she notices a few tree stumps beside a large post. Sitting on those stumps are a group of people, these vampires, quietly singing among themselves. When Mary sees them, she's surprised. There's a strange look on their faces, something between hunger and excitement. Not fear, more like a tense anticipation. Because they've already found their prey, Mary is startled and asks, "What are you doing here? They didn't let you inside, because you're white." Hearing this, the leader of the vampires, Remick, calmly replies, "Go inside and tell them to let us in. In return, I'll give you gold coins." He gestures for Mary to sit and tries to convince her, explaining that they just want to go inside, play music, and enjoy themselves. Mary feels bad hearing this. She's upset that they weren't allowed in just because they are white. So she tries to comfort them and says, "Don't worry, I'll arrange for you to get inside." But then, suddenly, she notices something very important. Their expressions start to change. Something isn't right. Their faces no longer look human. There's saliva dripping from their mouths. If you think about it, saliva usually forms when someone sees or even thinks about their favorite food, something they crave. The brain signals the salivary glands to prepare, and here Remick's eyes glow. His teeth look sharper, more vicious, and saliva drips from his mouth. At that moment, Mary understands everything. Her expression changes instantly, filled with fear. She says, I need to leave. I can't help you." As Mary turns to walk away, the woman from the couple, who is now a vampire, tries to stop her from behind. But Mary pulls out a gun. Back then in America, it was common practice for people to carry their own firearms. She points the gun at them and warns, "If any of you take one more step, I'll shoot you all right here." The vampires stare at her with terrifying expressions, but none of them move. Mary begins to walk away, thinking she might escape. But then we see Remick, the vampire leader, slowly stand up, and he starts following her. Something terrible is about to happen. As the scene continues, we suddenly see Remick leap through the air and launch a brutal attack on Mary. Remick suddenly leaps through the air and attacks Mary, turning her into a vampire. However, this exact moment isn't shown directly in the movie. It's implied rather than explicitly depicted. Earlier, we notice something unsettling. Remick's eyes start glowing. His teeth become sharper and more aggressive, and saliva drips from his mouth, like someone reacting to food they intensely crave. Mary sees this and immediately realizes something is wrong. Her face fills with fear as she understands the danger. She says, I need to leave. I can't help you." As Mary tries to walk away, the woman from the couple, now a vampire, attempts to stop her from behind. But Mary pulls out a gun. At that time in America, it was common for individuals to carry their own firearms. She points the gun at them and warns, "If any of you take one more step, I'll shoot all of you right here." The vampires stare at her with terrifying expressions, but don't move. Mary starts walking away, but then we see Remick, the vampire leader, slowly stand up and begin following her. It becomes clear that something terrible is about to happen. Moments later, Remick launches himself at her, and that's when he attacks and turns her into a vampire. After this, the scene shifts. Suddenly, a horrifying sound is heard, like someone groaning in pain or screaming in terror just before death. Everyone hears it, Hearing the sound, Smoke becomes uneasy and suspicious. He gathers his crew and heads toward the source of the noise. When they enter the room, he's shocked. Mary has transformed into something monstrous. Her entire body is covered in blood. Her mouth is smeared with it. Her teeth have grown long and sharp, and her eyes look like those of a terrifying predator, driven by an overwhelming hunger for blood. Mary declares, "None of you will survive. We'll slowly kill all of you." At that moment, Smoke understands everything. Without hesitation, he pulls out 2 revolvers from his waist. He always keeps them loaded. He and his crew are essentially mafia-type figures. They survived World War I and returned with a fortune, enough to open a nightclub for black people to enjoy freely. That alone shows how wealthy and dangerous they are. Smoke fires repeatedly into Mary's chest. She collapses to the ground, but nothing happens. Instead, her appearance becomes even more terrifying. She suddenly gets back up, shoves people aside, and runs out of the room. Seeing this bloody and horrifying scene, everyone in the club is terrified. Panic spreads instantly. Meanwhile, Stack's lifeless body lies on the ground. Seeing his brother like that, Smoke is completely devastated. Tears fill his eyes. He loved his younger brother deeply. Stack was always by his side, his protector and closest companion. Now, faced with his brother's tragic death, Smoke can barely handle the pain. If we look closely at the scene, we see Stack's lifeless body lying there, with blood flowing from his neck. Nearby, we also see Smoke's wife, Annie. Annie says, "Listen, from what I understand, you shot Mary in the chest at least 8 to 10 times, and still she didn't die. That means she had already become a vampire. That's why your bullets had no effect on her. And since Mary bit Stack, he will turn into a vampire soon as well. So we need to take his body outside the club. If we move him outside, he won't be able to come back in without permission." How does Annie know all of this? Because she practices a bit of dark magic, and Smoke already knew that about her. That's why she understands these things: what vampires are, how they behave, and how long it takes for someone to turn after being bitten. She tries to explain all of this to Smoke, but the biggest issue is that Smoke loves his brother too much. He becomes furious at Annie and says, "I will never leave my brother outside." The dream Smoke had built for himself begins to shatter right there. Then Annie adds, "Listen, to kill them, we'll need things like holy water, silver, or garlic. Otherwise, we won't be able to destroy these vampires." The scene then shifts back to the club. Everyone there is terrified. You can see it clearly on their faces. Music and dancing have completely stopped. All eyes are fixed on the door in fear, because they saw Mary leave in a horrifying, blood-covered state. Seeing all this, Smoke comes forward and addresses everyone in the nightclub. He says, "Listen, something terrible has happened. My brother Stack was attacked by vampires, so we can't stay here late tonight. Everyone needs to leave and go home as quickly as possible. The later it gets, the more danger we'll be in. The vampires have already attacked us, so get home safely as soon as you can." After hearing this, people begin to leave the club one by one. Gradually, the place starts to empty. Inside, a few people remain, those who choose to stay with Smoke. Among them are some performers, including Sammy as well as Annie. We also see Sammy's girlfriend, whom he had only recently met at the train station when he and Smoke were looking for performers. They had invited her to the party. Now, the remaining group gathers inside and starts discussing what just happened and how they can fight back against the vampires. They try to come up with a plan. At one point, the girl says, "I think I should go home. My young daughter is there alone." Hearing this, her husband agrees and says he will go home as well, since their child is by herself. Meanwhile, she stays behind, thinking about helping with the situation at the nightclub, especially after such a major and tragic incident. Handle things here, and stay by Smoke's side to support him. His brother has already died. The woman's husband agrees and prepares to leave. Earlier, we saw that he runs a hotel, and that's where Smoke had met him before. They're actually old friends. Also, if you look closely, they are not American. They are Chinese immigrants who came to the U.S. and now run their own business. Meanwhile, something important happens outside. The club's doorman steps away to relieve himself in a nearby wooded area. While he's standing there, he is suddenly attacked by the terrifying vampire leader, who turns him into a vampire as well. After this, the doorman returns to the club, but something feels off. He asks for permission to come inside. This immediately raises suspicion among everyone. Smoke and Annie both question it. "Why would you need permission to come in? You're one of us. You're the doorman. You can go in and out whenever you want." At this point, everyone inside begins to feel uneasy. The performers and the others realize that something is wrong. They sense that there's a serious problem. Smoke tells him, "Just come in. You don't need permission." But the doorman replies strangely, "No, you don't have to let me in. Just give me my pay for tonight." This surprises Smoke. Still, he reaches into his pocket, pulls out some coins, and moves to hand them over. But the moment he does, the doorman's expression suddenly changes. He grabs Smoke's hand tightly. His eyes begin to glow, and his teeth become sharp and menacing, like a bloodthirsty monster. Since Smoke is a dangerous, mafia-type person, he is always ready to face any situation. So without hesitation, he pulls out his gun and fires several shots straight into the chest of the big guard. The guard is thrown backward from the impact, but surprisingly, he gets back up and tries to attack again. However, he can't get inside. In the meantime, Smoke and the others rush inside and shut the door. The scene then shifts, and we see what's happening inside. Smoke's brother, Stack, has already turned into a vampire. From the other side of the door, he tries to convince everyone that he's fine now. He says, "I'm okay, just open the door and let me out." But there's a bite mark on his neck. As we know, when a vampire feeds on a human, that person eventually turns into a vampire as well. There's a small hole in the door, and Smoke tries to look through it to figure out if his brother is really okay, or if his wife Annie was right, that Stack has become a vampire. What Smoke sees is confusing. Stack looks completely normal, almost perfectly healthy, with no visible injuries. Even then, everyone is too scared to open the door. But suddenly, Stack kicks the door with incredible force and breaks it down. It's important to mention that at night, vampires gain extraordinary strength. They become more savage, more aggressive, almost beast-like. That's why Stack was able to destroy such a heavy door with a single kick. The broken door hits Sammy, knocking him to the ground and injuring him. Right after that, Stack attacks everyone. At that moment, Smoke's wife Annie throws hot garlic water onto Stack. Instantly, his body starts burning. Now you might wonder, why garlic water? The reason is, Annie has some knowledge of black magic. Since Stack used to practice it, Annie learned certain things about supernatural creatures, how to weaken or repel them. Garlic is known to be something vampires cannot tolerate. As the garlic water touches him, his skin starts to burn, and smoke rises from his body. Unable to bear the pain, Stack quickly retreats. As the story moves forward, we see Annie warning everyone. She tells them they are no longer safe because the vampires have already awakened. There's no escaping now. They must fight. But the question is, how will they fight? Annie explains that they can use holy water, which vampires fear. She also mentions that silver weapons can kill them, and garlic, especially in hot water, can weaken or harm them. The group starts discussing strategies on how to fight back, because the vampires are turning more and more people into their own kind. For example, Mary, who was just human a short while ago, has already been turned into a vampire after going outside. Then Annie explains to everyone how Mary was turned into a vampire, and how Stack also became one. She shares all of this because many people there have no idea about vampires. As mentioned earlier, Mary knows so much about these things because she used to study ghosts, evil spirits, and black magic. Anyway, Annie warns everyone about the danger, and after hearing her, the fear among the group grows even stronger. You can clearly see it in their facial expressions. At the same time, we notice something emotional. Annie tells her husband, Smoke, "Listen, now that vampires have started attacking us, I don't know how long I'll remain human. If by any chance I get turned into a vampire, you must kill me immediately. Otherwise, I'll be forced to live as one of them. And a vampire's life is cursed. When the thirst for blood takes over, it turns life into hell. I don't want to live that kind of cursed existence." Her husband reassures her, saying, "Okay, if that situation ever comes, I'll do my best to set you free forever." Then the scene shifts again. Outside, we see the vampire leader. He has been biting people and turning them into terrifying vampires, people who were simply on their way home. Now he controls all of their minds. In simple terms, this powerful vampire leader named Remake now has a massive army under his control. He can destroy anyone he wants. We then see Remake calling his followers together. He tells them, "Let's go attack that nightclub and finish off whoever is left inside. And bring me that talented singer named Sammy. We'll make him one of us so we can party at night. It will be a vampire party." So he gathers everyone and leads them toward the nightclub. Among them, we also see Mary and Stack. They have now become loyal servants of Remake. They all arrive in front of the nightclub. The vampire leader Remake calls out to the people inside, demanding that they hand over the singer Sammy so they can take him and celebrate. But the people inside refuse to listen. They firmly reject the demand and refuse to give up Sammy. Before this moment, something else had already happened. Earlier, a man had gone out to rescue his young daughter, who was home alone. By the time he returned, Remake had already turned him into a vampire. He came back and asked to be let inside. This made everyone suspicious. As they hesitated to open the door, Remake himself appeared. Slowly, more and more vampires gathered outside, people who had been turned by Remake. Together, they all demanded the same thing: "Give us the singer." Meanwhile, a woman inside breaks down in tears, saying that her husband has already been turned into a vampire. Everyone stands frozen near the door, overwhelmed with fear and a sense of unknown terror. If we look back at what was happening earlier, Remake was demanding that they hand over the singer, but the people inside refused to give him up. Meanwhile, We see Smoke holding a gun and threatening them, saying that if they don't leave, he will shoot. But the real question is, why couldn't the vampires enter the building? As I mentioned before, vampires cannot enter someone's home or property without permission. That's why they kept asking, either give us permission to come inside, or hand over the singer Sammy. This was what the vampire leader, Remake, was saying to Smoke and the others inside. Deep down, Smoke knows that his gun won't really help against them, but he still tries to intimidate them. Here, we notice something important. Stack and Mary are now working as Remake's main followers. They stay close to him at all times. If you look carefully at Stack, his appearance has completely changed. His eyes are glowing, his teeth have become sharp and pointed. It clearly shows that he is evolving and may soon become a powerful vampire leader himself. Stack calls out to his brother, saying, "Either let us come inside, or hand Sammy over to us. We'll take him and have our party." But Smoke firmly refuses, saying that it's impossible. They will never give Sammy away. In fact, Sammy is actually Smoke and Stack's cousin, which hadn't been mentioned earlier. At the same time, a woman inside is crying desperately. She is a Chinese woman who has no idea what has happened to her child. She is deeply worried. And on top of that, her husband has already been turned into a vampire. She is completely overwhelmed with fear and despair. Then the vampire leader threatens her directly. He says, "If you don't let us in or give us Sammy, I'll drink your daughter's blood and turn her into a vampire too." The moment she hears this, she loses control. Furious and emotional, she starts shouting, "How dare you! You think you can turn my daughter into a vampire? Come inside if you have the courage. I'll deal with you myself." In her anger, she unknowingly gives them permission to enter. She doesn't realize the terrible mistake she has just made. In reality, her daughter had already been turned into a vampire. This threat was just an excuse to manipulate her. Right after that, we see all the vampires slowly entering the nightclub. Once inside, they begin attacking the remaining survivors: Smoke, his wife Annie, Sammy, and the others. One by one, they overpower them and start turning them into vampires. The situation becomes absolutely terrifying. As the scene continues, we see something heartbreaking. Smoke's wife Annie gets bitten during the fight and begins turning into a vampire. Watching this, Smoke breaks down in tears. Just 6 months ago, he had already lost his young daughter, and now his wife is suffering the same fate. Remembering her words, that she never wanted to live a cursed vampire life, Smoke makes a painful decision. Without hesitation, he kills her by slitting her throat, freeing her before the transformation can fully take over. Meanwhile, the vampire leader continues turning almost everyone inside into vampires. The nightclub becomes a chaotic battlefield filled with violence and struggle. And as the situation spirals out of control, the scene shifts once again. We then see Sammy and Smoke trying to escape from the place. As they run, both of them manage to stay alive. Suddenly, Stack appears and attacks his brother, Smoke. During the attack, Smoke is almost killed, because Stack wants to turn his brother into a vampire so they can be reunited again. At this point, it's important to remember that the vampires' minds are being controlled by their leader, Remake. That's why Stack, under Remake's influence, is trying to kill his own brother by drinking his blood and turning him into a vampire, but he fails. Just as Stack is about to sink his sharp fangs into Smoke's neck, something changes. Smoke suddenly gains incredible strength and fights back. Using a card infused with holy water, He strikes Stack and nearly kills him. In that moment, Smoke hesitates. He realizes this is his brother, someone he truly loves. Instead of finishing him off, he lets him go. He tells Stack, "Don't ever misuse this vampire power. You may live forever, but you must never harm any human, and you must never hurt Sammy." Stack, now a vampire, listens to his older brother. He accepts what Smoke says and walks away from the scene. Then the scene shifts. At the beginning of the movie, we saw a brief shot of Sammy with a scratch on his cheek, and now we finally understand that this scene actually came from the events of this very night. Sammy was trying to escape through a back road, but suddenly Remy, the leader of the vampires, appeared and attacked him. Remy wanted to bite Sammy and turn him into a vampire because he saw Sammy as a talented artist who could entertain them with his music even after becoming one of them. Meanwhile, all the other vampires were watching the scene from a distance. Remy was just about to sink his teeth into Sammy's neck when, at that exact moment, Sammy struck back with the guitar in his hand. He hit Remy hard on the head. An interesting detail here is that the guitar had a thin layer of silver inside it. That silver piece pierced directly into Remy's head. Since Remy's brain was controlling all the other vampires, the moment his brain was damaged, every vampire began to feel intense pain. Remy himself was in unbearable agony, and as a result, all the vampires started losing their strength. It became clear that Remy would soon die, and once he died, all the vampires would eventually die as well. These vampires were not ordinary. They were part of a cursed bloodline, born into this world with a divine curse. In his desperate state, Remy tried to pull the object out of his head. But just then, Smoke appeared from behind, carrying a sharpened wooden stake soaked in holy water. He drove it straight through Remy's body from the back to the front, piercing his chest. This attack was fatal. Even without this, the vampires would have died eventually, but at that very moment, the sun began to rise. Since vampires cannot tolerate sunlight, the rising sun caused their bodies to catch fire. From a distance, both Sammy and Smoke watched as, one by one, every vampire burned to ashes. Watching this, they finally felt a sense of relief. However, both of them were left shocked and speechless. Smoke had lost his entire family, and although Sammy hadn't lost his family, he had lost his girlfriend, the woman he had promised to marry. Both of them were heartbroken. At this point, Smoke tells Sammy to leave. This connects back to the earlier scene where Sammy is driving a car. This car actually belongs to Smoke. Sammy drives it to the church where his father serves as a priest. This is the same scene shown at the beginning of the movie, where everyone looks at Sammy in fear and confusion. His face is scratched, his body covered in wounds, and he looks completely exhausted and broken. No one can understand what he has been through. Then the scene shifts again. We see Smoke pulling out an old but extremely powerful gun. He realizes that another dangerous conflict is coming. The man named Harwood, from whom he bought the factory to turn it into a nightclub, is not a good person at all, and trouble is far from over. He was a white man who used to oppress black people. Because of this, Smoke had already suspected that Harwood might attack at any time, so he kept his gun ready in advance. And his suspicion turned out to be true. We see that Harwood arrives in front of the factory, now turned into a nightclub, with a group of armed men. At that moment, Smoke was positioned up in a tree. From there, he started shooting them down one by one. His weapon was incredibly powerful, almost like a shotgun. Once it hit someone, there was no chance of survival. He took them all out, and even set one of their vehicles on fire. However, there's a tragic detail here. If you look closely, you'll notice that during the fight, Smoke himself had been shot in the chest. Because of this, he eventually collapsed to the ground. As he lay there, he stared ahead in fear, as if he had seen something unknown or terrifying. In his final moments, he began thinking about his wife and his young daughter. He started hallucinating. He saw them both dressed in white. His daughter was resting against his wife, and then he imagined holding his child in his arms. This makes it clear that Smoke was dying, and what he was seeing were his final visions of his family. The scene then shifts. We see Sammy entering the church, holding his broken guitar. His father embraces him tightly, but there is no smile on his face, only a deep, unspoken fear. After listening to his father, Sammy takes Smoke's car and drives down a road through cotton fields toward the city. He is determined to become a great singer in the future. Then the story jumps forward, about 60 years later. The date is October 16th, 1992. Sammy is now much older, but he has become a famous and respected singer in the city. He has achieved far more than he ever dreamed of. One day, after performing on stage, Sammy steps down and sits somewhere to have a drink. Suddenly, he is shocked to see familiar faces: Stack, Smoke's brother, and Stack's girlfriend, Mary. Their appearance has changed with the times. They are now dressed in modern DJ-style outfits. Seeing them, Sammy is stunned. They come and sit with him, and he asks, "How are you still alive? And how do you still look so young? I've grown old, but you haven't changed at all." Stack replies, "That day, my brother Smoke chose not to kill me. Mary and I escaped and found a safe place. I promised him that I would never harm any human, especially you. Now I have an offer for you. Since you're old and will die soon, I can turn you into a vampire so you can live a much longer life." But Sammy refuses. He says, "I've already received far more in life than I ever wanted. I don't need anything else now. I'm just waiting for my death." Then he adds, "Do you know? That day was the happiest day of my life. The day I laughed freely and sang with all my heart." He pauses, then continues, "And I had someone I loved, my girlfriend." He continues, "She was the first woman I ever truly loved." Hearing this, Stack responds, "You're right, Sammy. That day was special for me, too. It was the last time I ever saw my brother. It was the first time I was afraid of sunlight. And that night, I had so much fun. I still remember the moments I spent with my brother." After sharing these memories, their conversation comes to an end. Stack puts on his sunglasses, then places his arm around Mary's shoulder, and they walk away together. From a distance, Sammy watches them, and a strange smile appears on his face. The scratch mark left by the vampire Remy is still visible on his cheek. And with that, the story of the movie comes to an end. So, friends, this is how the story of Sinner concludes. In this second part, we broke down the entire story scene by scene, from beginning to end. In the first part, we only provided a short explanation, but it's not always possible to cover everything in detail in a brief explanation. That's why in this part, we went deeper so that viewers who enjoy full breakdowns can truly understand the story. One important theme highlighted in this movie is the power of music. Music can attract anyone toward it. In the film, it is even suggested that music is something tied to dark forces. As Sammy's father once said, instruments like the guitar and music itself can be seen as the work of the devil, which is why he urged Sammy to stay away from it. Music has the power to draw in not just humans, but even spirits, demons, and vampires. So this is how the story of Sinner ends. At the very end of the movie, we see the main character, Smoke, standing with a strange, blood-covered body. All right, Dosto. Well, friends, that's all for today. In the next topic, we'll talk about the details of this movie, such as its release year, which theaters it was released in, the cast, the characters, and more. We'll try to explain everything clearly so you can fully understand it. I know many of you may not watch such a long video. Most people prefer shorter explanations, quick videos of around 8 to 10 minutes that clearly explain the movie. In fact, probably 90–95% of viewers prefer short content like that. But anyway, we're wrapping up this part here. Hope you enjoyed the video. This is just the end of this part, not the entire discussion. In the next part, we'll go into more details about the movie, who's in it, how much it earned, and everything else. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next part. Now we've moved on to part 3, where we'll be discussing the details of this movie. Things like who was involved in making it, the total budget, how much it earned, where it was released, and why it became so popular. First, let's start with one of the most important aspects, the people behind the making of this film and their contributions. So, let's get started, friends. Here are the key credits for the movie. Directed by Ryan Coogler. Written by Ryan Coogler. Produced by Zinzi Coogler, Sev Ohanian, Ryan Coogler. Starring Michael B. Jordan, Hailee Steinfeld, Miles Caton, Jack O'Connell, Wunmi Mosaku, Jamie Lawson, Omar Benson Miller, Delroy Lindo. Cinematography by Autumn Durald. Arkapaw, edited by Michael P. Shawver. Music by Ludwig Göransson. Production company, Proximity Media. Distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. Now, we're going to talk about the movie's budget, release date, and overall earnings. For that, we'll turn to one of the most reliable sources, Wikipedia, and present accurate information based on it. So, let's dive in and take a closer look at the details from Wikipedia. Sinners is a 2025 American horror film produced, written, and directed by Ryan Coogler. Set in 1932 in the Mississippi Delta. It stars Michael B. Jordan in dual roles as criminal twin brothers who return to their hometown in the Jim Crow South, where they are confronted by a supernatural evil. The film co-stars Hailee Steinfeld, Miles Caton, in his film debut, Jack O'Connell, Wunmi Mosaku, Jamie Lawson, Omar Benson Miller, and Delroy Lindo. Coogler began developing Sinners through his production company, Proximity Media, with Jordan cast in the lead role. The project was announced in January 2024, and after a bidding war, Warner Brothers Pictures acquired distribution rights the following month. Additional roles were cast in April. Principal photography took place from April to July 2024. Longtime Coogler collaborator Ludwig Göransson composed the film's score and also served as an executive producer. Sinners premiered on April 3, 2025, at AMC Lincoln Square in New York City, and was theatrically released in the United States on April 18, 2025. It received critical acclaim and became a commercial success, grossing $370 million worldwide against a budget of $100 million. The National Board of Review and the American Film Institute listed it among the top 10 films of 2025. The film received numerous accolades, including a record-breaking 16 nominations at the 98th Academy Awards, winning 4 Best Actor, Michael B. Jordan, Han sitter hintan man sitter at torn. Best Original Screenplay, Ryan Coogler. Best Cinematography, Autumn Durald Archipel, who became the first woman to win in that category, and Best Original Score, Ludwig Göransson. It also earned 13 BAFTA Award nominations, winning 3, including Coogler's Award for Best Original Screenplay, 4 Critics' Choice Awards, 2 Golden Globe Awards, 2 SAG Awards, including Outstanding Performance by a Cast in a Motion Picture, and a historic 18 nominations and 13 wins at the 57th NAACP Image Awards, including Outstanding Motion Picture.